Anyone know where that a new world? Why would it be called a new world? Who's it new to? Europeans, right? Europeans who the idea of specifically in this chapter mostly Spain and a guy who's actually Italian. He's from Genoa, who discover, Columbus, basically. I'll cut to the chase. Columbus, right? And Columbus is used to, it's seen as very problematic now, but is recognized as the person who discovered America. And that's obviously something that, people used to say that now we sort of snicker at, because how do you just discover a place where there are already at least 50 million people living there, possibly even up to like 90 million people in North and South America? Right? The island that he landed in 1492, October 12, 1492, there are a 250,000 people on that island and surrounding islands, right? So, and and also the Vikings, and we're going to talk about it, the Vikings, who came here in the 11th century, or at least Greenland and parts of Canada. There are reasons why people in Europe were trying to find sea routes to Asia for various reasons, and there are circumstances like when they came back, telling people of their discoveries, how that information was able to spread more easily and allow for just sort of a push by all these different countries to sort of race for colonial territory, to increase the wealth of their countries and whatnot. But let's talk about the people that were here first. So New World is new to Europeans. It's also, the title is sort of ambiguous, right? A New World implies that now you have this continent, two continents, North and South America, where people had been living for thousands of years. So as human civilization is developing in Mesopotamia, Sumeria, if you've all taken ancient history, like the Middle East, and then people in China, there's like recorded history that's very, very, very old, like that. We're talking thousands of years. Ancient Egypt, right? Ancient Greece. All of these things are happening over there. To them, it's the known world. There's this other hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere, that is basically evolving. People are developing, different societies, civilizations, unbeknownst to people in Europe and Africa and Asia, for the most part. And so let's look at just sort of background of that. There's about three different theories as to how North America was populated by humans, by people. The most common, some of you are familiar with the most common one, is the crossing of a so-called land bridge, across the Bering Strait, which connects Asia and Alaska, the present-day, I think, Russia and Alaska, right? There's an ice age at a certain point, about 14,000 years ago, it ended, but there's an ice age, some sort of piece of land. It would normally be in the ocean, right, that is exposed, and over a long period of time, there are some recent archaeological discoveries that people may have stayed on that little stretch of land for thousands of years, because it's not like people just were in Asia and and stuff froze and it's like, oh, look at this, we'll just go this way now, and then they came over here to the Americas, right? It's like people would stop, they would settle somewhere, and then new groups would break off. So eventually they make their way across this land bridge into present-day Alaska and then Canada. It takes them about 2,000 years, right? So in about 13,000 BCE, or BC, whichever term you use. So about 13,000 BCE is when this happened, or at least they know that it was about 13,000 BCE because that's when this ice age ended. When this ice age ends, sea levels rise, and that land bridge is no longer there. There are also two other theories that people from the Pacific, like Polynesian islands, took on boats, basically, or whatever type of boats they had, moved along the coast of, I guess, Vietnam, China, the Korean Peninsula, and then sort of over to where Alaska is, sort of up the coast of in northern Asia, and then over to North America. The same years ago. There are people on the entire hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere, where we are, right, North and South America. They reach sort of the coastal part of South America, the western coast, and then the tip of South America, until eventually there are, the estimates are 50 to 90 million people in both hemispheres, in the entire both continents, right? And there's certain areas where there's significantly larger amounts of people, right? In the present-day United States, 1 million people were in the present-day U.S., right? And so I've seen some estimates as high as 10. Right? So out of 50 million, possibly 60 million, however many people in both in the whole hemisphere, that's not a lot. But you look at like the Aztec civilization or Mayan civilization in Mesoamerica, Mexico, and the Aztec capital Tenochtitlan had 250,000 people roughly. Like when the Spanish arrived, there are 250,000 people living in that, and it's one of the largest cities on earth at the time.